This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel, broadcasting remotely. There's no doubt limiting screen time for kids has gone out the window in the shift to remote learning in this pandemic. But there are activities to give your children a break from computers. Coming up, we'll hear from Our Farm in Bloomfield about its 4-H program for children. Also, fall may be the season for apple picking and hay rides, but in the town of Wethersfield, residents can tour one of its historic homes, open this month for the first time. We'll hear from the Webb Dean Stevens Museum in Wethersfield about the Buttolph Williams House and its interesting connection to a Newbery Medal-winning book you may have read in school. First, the Connecticut Historical Society and the local Mexican community have invited residents to join in a unique program to celebrate Día de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, that starts later this month. Joining me now on Zoom is Carlos Hernandez Chavez, an artist, musician, and educator from Connecticut. Carlos, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Also with us is Kate Schramm. She's director of the Connecticut Cultural Heritage Arts Program at the Connecticut Historical Society in Hartford. Kate, welcome to Where We Live.
Thank you.
You can also join our conversation, 888-720-9677, or find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. Carlos, tell us more about Day of the Dead and how it's celebrated. I was thinking about in the last few years, it has become maybe more mainstream, more well-known because of that Pixar movie, Coco, but tell us more about Day of the Dead.
Well, the Day of the Dead goes back to pre-Hispanic times in Mexico. It was celebrated around the end of harvest, and where people would go to their grave sites of their dead relatives to celebrate their life. It was believed that the dead would come during those days to visit with the relatives. The relatives would tidy up their grave sites with flowers and with fruits of the season and with food that the departed enjoyed. Fast forward to today, it is celebrated just about everywhere in Mexico. It caught on so tremendously with parades and concerts and festivals and all kinds of things. But when I was growing up in Mexico a few decades ago, we used to go to the cemetery, to see, the scene, and it was just wonderful to see the families gathering around the grave sites and like having a picnic, but in a very solemn kind of way, not sad or anything, but just kind of celebrating family and with food, and see them tidying up the grave sites and bringing lots of flowers. And at night, it's just incredibly wonderful to see the whole cemetery alight with candles. And right outside the cemeteries, there's a celebration, a huge party going on with vendors and performances and you name it. You would never think that it was anything about death. But it turns out that Mexicans celebrate death as a way of celebrating life. It really is an honor to life.
Tell me, Carlos, when we think about the Mexican community living here in Connecticut, how Mexicans celebrate Day of the Dead. Obviously, there are altars put up in their homes. But when I think about parades and celebrations, tell us, because you have lived in Connecticut now for a couple of decades, tell us how it's been celebrated.
Yes, I was going to segue into, segue into the altars or ofrendas, as we call them.
Yes.
People in their homes build what we call an ofrenda, or an offering or altar, as people know it, pretty much with the same spirit, decorating it with the photographs and mementos of the people they are honoring, including pets, by the way. It doesn't have to be just persons. And with the same spirit, with bringing flowers and decorations and objects, sugar skulls, which are tremendously traditional, and papel picado, which is really cut paper with all kinds of beautiful decorations, very intricate decorations, candles, and what have you. And we in Mexican communities have continued to do that, to perform that tradition over the years. We hadn't seen that happening because we had not seen the Mexican community more as visible as it is today. When I came here 53 years ago, there were no Mexicans, so it was kind of hard to celebrate something with nobody that understood that. But soon it started to crop up here and there, and now it's becoming a pretty popular celebration. And you're right, I think, with the movie, the Coco, it's pretty Hollywood, and as we know, but they capture the essence of what the celebration is, and I think it served as an education tool for people who have absolutely no idea what the Day of the Dead is about.
Carlos, you said you moved here 53 years ago. So tell us about the Mexican population in Connecticut today. Do we have accurate numbers, and what parts of the state you see families living?
I think Kate quoted in the 57,000. I'm not sure if that's a number, but the Mexican community, the Mexican community is the second largest Hispanic population in the state. One would never know. But it is, of course, the first being the Puerto Rican population. But yeah, we're growing. We're growing in numbers little by little, and we're taking some strides in having people understand, that we're here just like other people's immigrant families have established residence here.
You're hearing Carlos Hernandez Chavez, an artist, musician, and educator from Connecticut. We're talking about a partnership with the local Mexican-American community and the Connecticut Historical Society. Carlos mentioned Kate. Kate Schramm is here, who's director of the Connecticut Cultural Heritage Arts Program. So, Kate, tell us about this partnership, and what is this particular event that you're doing, again, with the Mexican community?
Sure. Excuse me. So a couple of years ago, the Connecticut Cultural Heritage Arts Program is the state's folk and traditional arts initiative that's based at the CHS. And the program has a long relationship with Carlos and also other members of the Mexican community in Connecticut, as well as the Mariachi Academy of New England, which is a fantastic organization. And we were all kind of together in a room, and Carlos and Adam Romo, who's the director of the Mariachi Academy, said, well, why don't we do something for Day of the Dead? And so in 2018, we put together this small event that was mostly supposed to be educational. It was family friendly. There were arts and crafts and music. And we expected maybe 100 people would come if we put a party on for people to come. And we had over 400 people show up. And that was when we realized, wow, there's something here. People want to know more. People are wanting to engage with this tradition. We did another big event last year, but this year, a big event just isn't possible. It's not responsible. We're all trying to figure out what to do with COVID, but we wanted some kind of continuity. And so we said, well, one of the ways last year that people really were able to engage and participate in the tradition of Day of the Dead was to leave messages and photos on a community ofrenda that we had set up. And so this year we said, well, why don't we give everybody the opportunity to participate in a community ofrenda? We'll create an online portal where people can donate images or videos or messages talking about their traditions. And then we'll use those things to create a physical, real life ofrenda outside at the CHS that then people, if they want to come all the way to Hartford to visit that ofrenda and interact with it or leave a physical message there, they can do that. Or if they can't make that trip all the way to Hartford, we're going to make a video of the ofrenda. We're going to feature performances, socially distanced, of course, by members of the Mariachi Academy of New England. And we're going to release that as a tribute video on November the 2nd in the evening, which is the final day of the Day of the Dead.
And we will have a link on our website, wnpr.org/wherewelive, for listeners to learn more about how they can contribute to this virtual and outdoor ofrenda. Kate, Carlos, I wanted to go back to you because we know we're in this pandemic, and the virtual ofrenda will be an important part of this because we can't gather like we used to. But I'm also thinking about this past year and how COVID has disproportionately impacted people of color, including the Latino community. Tell us how the community will be thinking about COVID and its impact on so many families around our country and our state.
Well, it's hard to guess what they're thinking. And the people that I have spoken with are pretty particular about being safe. It is unfortunate that it is not all across the board, and there are people who are just reckless, to say the least, and don't understand the seriousness of this pandemic. But the Mexican families, are very closely knit, and they look after each other, and they call each other on things that they need to call each other on. So in that way, I think that they are very aware and very appropriately taking care of what they need to take care of to be safe. So I'm not sure what else I can add on that. But I know that they care to be safe.
Kate, this is an interesting partnership again with the Mexican community, but how else is the Connecticut Historical Society working to create programs that recognize all of our state's diverse communities?
Oh, that's a great question, Lucy. The Connecticut Historical Society is really committed not only to where Connecticut has been in the past, but also where Connecticut is now. Everyone who is part of this state, whether you're indigenous and your roots go back here permanently, or if you've been here for 12 generations, your family has, or if you've only recently arrived, that makes you part of Connecticut's story. And the CHS is very, very committed to working with a whole host of different cultural communities to tell their stories right now. Our education staff work very hard to create programs that are sensitive to lots of different cultural backgrounds. And of course, my program is always working with a whole host of different communities to not only put together programs, but also to document and add to the archive that we have at the CHS of what's actually happening in Connecticut right now.
And Carlos, before we go to break, for people who are interested in this virtual ofrenda, when is the deadline for people to submit photos and notes that will be used to create both the virtual and outdoor ofrenda?
Well, the deadline has been set for the 16th of this month, which is next Friday. In order for the videographer to shoot the whole ofrenda, and we try to have as many submissions included so that people can have their say in the ofrenda. So the 16th is the deadline to submit items, photographs, and whatever else they want to submit, including videos and recordings.
And Carlos, I mentioned that you are an artist, so you'll be helping create the physical memorial?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's going to be pretty big ofrenda, and I'm happy for that, because if you were to see what is made in Mexican celebrations, you won't believe it. I mean, there's almost like buildings that are 3-4 stories or higher in size.
And again, this will be outside the Connecticut Historical Society?
Yes, it will be in the gardens, right across the main entrance. And there's going to be other displays complementing the ofrenda that celebrate the Day of the Dead.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I want to thank Carlos Hernandez Chavez, again, an artist, musician, and educator here in Connecticut, and Kate Schramm, director of the Historical Arts Program at the Connecticut Historical Society in Hartford. Thank you both for talking about this unique program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Coming up, have you read The Witch of Blackbird Pond? It's a Newbery Medal-winning book with an interesting connection to the town of Wethersfield. We'll talk more about that after the break. You can join us too. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. There are so many historic homes managed by Connecticut Landmarks that residents can visit, and for this month, one of them has opened for the first time. Joining us now on Zoom is Katie Sullivan, a staff member at the Webb Dean Stevens Museum in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Katie, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand the museum manages the Buttolph Williams House, and so tell us about this historic home and why you're opening it now.
Well, the Buttolph Williams House is a home that was built in 1711. It's a very medieval-looking home, much different than what you'd picture the other historic homes in Old Wethersfield. And it was the setting that the author Elizabeth George Spear had in mind when she wrote her book, The Witch of Blackbird Pond. So the tour, we're going to be talking about the book and the themes behind it, prejudice, superstition, and it links into the fact that there were actually witch trials and executions in Wethersfield.
So tell me more about Elizabeth George Spear. I remember reading this book when I was younger. I was growing up in Pennsylvania. I never knew I'd be living in Connecticut one day. But tell us about this author and how she used this house and areas around Wethersfield in her historical novel.
Well, she was a teacher. She lived here and visited the house, and I think it kind of spurred her as a good setting, for the story that she had in mind. And she did win the Newbery Prize in 1959 for writing this book. I actually got it as a young girl, too. It was a gift from a family member because she knew I lived in Wethersfield.
So for listeners who haven't read this book, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it was. It's a story about a young girl who is born and living in Barbados with her, and her grandfather is her guardian. He dies, and she has no one there in Barbados. So she takes it upon herself to come to Wethersfield, where her mother's sister lives, but she arrives unannounced. And she's just different from everyone else. She arrives in this Puritan family with 12 boxes of clothes, fancy clothes, and that of course sets them off right away. Is she's very different. She can read, she can swim, a lot of things that were just unusual, and because she's different, she's kind of set apart and then eventually persecuted and accused of being a witch.
You mentioned the connections to witch trials here in Connecticut. I mentioned this is a historical novel. Just the other day, we had state historian Walt Woodward on, who told us between 1647 and 1663, Connecticut was the fiercest prosecutor of witches before John Winthrop, who later became governor, put an end to this practice. So talk about our witch history, Katie, and how you'll be incorporating that into this tour.
Well, we had 9 cases of people that were accused of witchcraft. Interestingly enough, we had men accused of witchcraft as well. People usually just think of women, but we did have men as well. And there were 3 people executed that lived in Wethersfield. The first one was a woman named Mary Johnson, and her case is interesting because she actually confessed. So we don't know what kind of pressure was being put on her. But she was originally someone that had been charged with theft. She was not a wealthy person. She was a poorer person in town. So, someone that was looked down on. And she eventually confessed to, causing illness and being a spectral image and dancing with the devil and all these kind of things. So she was the first person from Wethersfield that was executed. But the other 2 that were executed were actually a husband and wife, John and Joan Carrington. And she accused, she said things about him, and then that turned around and came back on her. And so she was executed as well. One of the last ones, the last one here in Wethersfield, and one of the last ones in the state of Connecticut was Catherine Harrison. And her case is very interesting. She was married to a wealthy man in town. He died and left everything to her and her daughters, which was kind of frowned upon at the time, and that, the community didn't like that at all. So she gets accused of breaking the Sabbath, of black magic, fortune telling, and she's arrested and found guilty. But the magistrate had some questions about some of the points in the case. And Gershom Boakley, who was a minister here in Wethersfield and who is actually one of the actual historic figures in the Witch of Blackbird Pond, he helps to develop new evidence, new methods of evidence collection, so that it really kind of starts to put an end to these trials. It is now required to have 2 witnesses that saw someone floating around in the sky and can describe exactly what they saw, and things like that. So it made it more difficult for people to accuse people of being a witch.
That's really interesting. Katie Sullivan, again, is with us here on Where We Live, a staff member at the Webb Dean Stevens Museum in Wethersfield, Connecticut, as we're talking about the museum, which manages this historic house in Wethersfield, the Buttolph Williams House, and how it'll be open for tours this month. When people come to visit Wethersfield, do they often ask you about the Connecticut's witch history, Katie? Or is this something that people know?
Well, probably more in October than they do any other times. But we do mention it when we take people to the houses, and it is an interesting part of our history here in Wethersfield. Not a proud part, but an interesting part.
So tell me more about the tour, because I know that it'll also be encompassing some other landmarks and properties in Wethersfield that Elizabeth George Spear also used as an influence in her book, The Witch of Blackbird Pond.
Well, we would be setting off from the Webb Dean Stevens Museum, walking over to the houses. I think the thing that you're referring to is there is a map that was created by Phil Lohman, who's an artist, and he's also an employee of the Webb Dean Stevens Museum. And on that map, he's drawn it as if it were the time that the book was set in. So many of the places that are mentioned in the book are found on the map. So people can take that map and kind of do a self-guided tour of around the area. And that map's available at the Webb Dean Stevens Museum.
I know we're focusing on the Buttolph Williams House, but I should ask you, Katie, a little bit about the museum, where you work and the history there.
Oh, well, it's very exciting. Probably our claim to fame is that George Washington met with the Count de Rochambeau at the Webb House in 1781. And they began to plot battle strategy there that would eventually lead to the Battle of Yorktown. And the room he stayed in has been preserved. So when you go there and walk in the door, it's going to be, you'll see the same wallpaper on the walls that was there when Washington was there. So that's very exciting. But we also own 2 other houses. So there's the Silas Deane House. And Silas Deane, if people don't realize, was our first diplomat to Paris. So he has an interesting story all of his own. And we have the Isaac Stevens House, and that doesn't have a historic significance the way the other 2 houses do, but it gives us an opportunity to show people how people were living, the average family was living in the 18th century and in Connecticut, 18th and 19th.
How challenging has it been to operate during the pandemic, Katie, when we think about coming into these older homes and social distancing and being able to still keep the community engaged in these properties?
It has been a challenge. Earlier on, we've been doing a lot with our social media. So we have a fun program where our curator has been going through the alphabet and giving us a different item for each letter of the alphabet. So that's on our Facebook page, and that's kind of fun. But now we are open again, but we're limiting the numbers of people that can come through the houses. And we've kind of reimagined the tour so that we are taking a safe route through the 3 houses and not backtracking. And we have sanitizer in all the houses. So we think we're doing a good job. People, of course, have to wear their masks, and we think we're doing a good job of keeping people safe. There are a few rooms that we're not showing now, so we're hoping people that come on the tour now will visit us again and be able to see everything.
So tell us more about, for our listeners who are interested in signing up for this, the Witch of Blackbird Pond and the tour to the Buttolph Williams House. Are there still openings, Katie?
There are openings, but it's been very popular, so we've actually extended it through November 15th. So people can call Cindy Riccio at the museum. Did you want me to give the number?
Sure, if you have it handy.
Yep, it's 860-529-0612, extension 12. Or you can go to our social media, Facebook or our website or Instagram, and you'll find all of the information there. And we are limiting the tours because of the number of people, but also we have certain times so that we can skip an hour between tours. So on Wednesday through Saturday, it would be 10, 12, and 2, and on Sunday it's 1 and 3. And we don't have any tours the weekend of the 17th and 18th because we have other program that weekend.
I want to thank Katie Sullivan for joining us, a staff member at the Webb Dean Stevens Museum in Wethersfield, Connecticut. We also have a link on our website, wnpr.org/wherewelive, for our listeners if they'd like to know more. I know, Katie, I love to visit all of the historic homes and properties around our state. I need to get to your museum, so I hope to meet you someday.
We would love to have you come. We would love to have you come.
Thank you, Katie. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. After the break, we're going to learn how Our Farm in Bloomfield is helping children learn new skills following the 4-H tradition. Now, it's Connecticut Public Radio's fall fundraising campaign. If you enjoy learning about our state and hearing from Connecticut residents on Where We Live, please support this program and WNPR with a pledge. Here are two of my colleagues to tell you more. This is Where We Live on Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. In a year of unexpected events, Where We Live is shaking things up a bit. We're searching for a new theme song. We're looking for an artist that can work with our team to create a new theme song for the show. If you're interested, we'd love to hear from Connecticut artists and musicians. You can visit wnpr.org/wherewelive to learn more. Now, there's no doubt limiting screen time for kids has gone out the window in the shift to remote learning in the pandemic, but there are activities to keep your children engaged and away from computers. Joining us now on Zoom is Erica Fern. She's executive director of the Our Farm in Bloomfield. Erica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
So tell us more about the Our Farm and the educational center you have there.
Well, the 4-H Education Center has been around since in the 1970s. It's a 120-acre farm that is a public place. It's a place where anyone can come visit, engage in farm life and nature, and have a typical experience of being on a farm. We also host a number of school programs, and our biggest connection is with our 4-H club and our 4-H community at the farm.
Tell us more about 4-H and what it stands for and how this program has really evolved through the years.
Well, the 4-H is a 4-leaf clover, and the H's stand for head, heart, hands, and health. And the 4-H program has a long history with the land-grant colleges and cooperative education across the country. So we have a strong relationship with the University of Connecticut College of Agriculture, Health, and Natural Resources. And it's through them that we are able to have a 4-H program and host it at our farm. So 4-H is at the local club level. Your town may have a 4-H club. The state, the national level, and also around the world you'll find it. So there's a lot of opportunities to be involved in different levels of 4-H.
I understand the Our Farm has a 4-H club that's meeting in October for kids. So tell me more about what kids will be learning and the activities on the farm.
We have some great activities. We had in the past year 40 4-Hers. We're up to 56 people interested in 4-H. So 4-H at Our Farm is learning by doing. So the children will learn to work with the different types of animals we have on the farm. from chickens, goats, sheep, alpacas, donkeys. They learn how to handle them. They learn how to work with the animals, respect the animals, how to take care of them. So that is hands-on. We also do a lot of things out in our gardens. We have a nurturing garden where the children have harvested lavender, and then it has been dried, and then they've harvested the lavender seeds and flower buds off the plants. So we can use those in little lavender sacks that we'll be producing. They've been out on our hiking trails. They've been coming as volunteers during the week. They are either feeding the animals, cleaning up after the animals, brushing the animals, or picking up tree branches that fell in the storm. So there's a wide range of hands-on activities that our 4-Hers are doing.
Now, I understand that you did 4-H when you were younger. Why is this type of activity, this club, so important today?
Being outside, I believe, is very important. I have a huge passion for 4-H, having grown up in it. And being a very shy child, 4-H was my outlet. It really allowed me to develop my strengths. You don't need a fancy animal to be in 4-H. You learn that if you don't have the best of something, you make do, and you can still succeed and thrive by making do. So you learn by doing, you build your skills, and you just keep exceeding. With the COVID environment we're in, we are seeing a lot of children with more screen time than ever. And just being able to get outside, be on the farm, touch nature, release their brain from the stress. This is stressful on our families. And it's going through our communities, this stress. And just to be able to be on the farm alleviates that. Working with the animals alleviates that stress. And that's really important for children and even adults today, is to be outside and get involved. And programs like 4-H allow that.
You're hearing Erica Fern here on Where We Live, Executive Director of the 4-H Education Center at Our Farm in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Erica, tell me more about the children you're serving. When we think about farming and raising livestock, you might think that this is for children who live out in the country, who have property, their family has property to raise animals. But I'm curious about the kids in Connecticut that you're serving.
Well, we're very fortunate because this farm is for everyone. It's spelled AUER, Our Farm, but it's really OUR. It is all of Our Farm. And that's because we had a very generous gift from the Koopman and Shiro families years ago that wanted to make sure that all children, no matter where they're from, had an opportunity to come out at the farm and just enjoy it, just be there.
That's really interesting. So you mentioned this 4-H program here in this month, and you're at capacity. And so I'm just wondering, in terms of the number of parents and families, are you hearing from a lot of people that want their children to get this aspect in their education, given the times we're in?
It is very important. We're hearing from many, many parents. We actually have an after-school program because our summer camp parents wanted their children to be on the farm 2 days a week during the school year. So we have an after-school program Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays and Thursdays. We have a pre-K program on Wednesday mornings. And we're following all of the requirements by the Connecticut Department of Early Childhood Education to make sure that our students and our teachers are social distancing, we're wearing masks, we're doing everything to keep children safe. We're maintaining small groups. And that's carrying over into our 4-H program. So while we have 56 students interested, we're going to be spread out. We're outside. There's 120 acres. We have plenty of room to socially distance, keep people safe, and yet give them the outlet that they're looking for, where they can be outside engaging with our animals, engaging with nature, being in our gardens, watching the pollinators in the nurturing garden. That's all really important.
I like the emphasis on growing plants and taking care of animals. I was thinking about our 2 apple trees that we have. It's been a rough year, Erica, with the drought. And if you don't know about raising apple trees and certain things that you can apply to them that may be organic but will keep certain pests away, you don't get a good bumper crop come October. And so I wanted you to walk through some of the lessons that you're teaching children when it comes to growing their own food.
We have some gardening and nutrition programs at the farm that is part of the 4-H program. We also have the University of Connecticut Master Gardener program that has the food share garden. And our 4-Hers will help in the food share garden with the master gardeners. Not only again, 4-H is learn by doing, so they're learning by doing, and they help weed the garden, harvest the garden, and then the master gardener volunteers take that produce twice a week over to food share. We're also learning, we do have an apple orchard, and like your trees, our trees suffered this year because of the drought. At one time, the 4-Hers operated the orchard and the cider business. It was a year-round business that they operated on the farm. And over the years, the orchard has become overgrown and has been needed some attention and tender love and care. And it's getting that now. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to develop the orchard and the 4-H program again in combination and have some more production out of there and teaching the children on how to maintain those trees and keep them healthy.
I need to sign up, Erica. I like that you talked about this partnership with Food Share because we know in the pandemic where people have lost their jobs, where they're depending on organizations, we are a food insecure state, and that's an important component as well.
It's very important. And one of the things that the farm brings to people is the knowledge that there is a way to grow your food locally, nearby. It brings that local connection, and hopefully that alleviates some stress that we don't even realize we have. You know, Connecticut's right between New York and Boston, and we become kind of an island if there's ever a food shortage. And so people need the comfort that there are local farms producing. And with just a few changes in our habits of eating sustainably, looking for local produce, eating seasonally, there's so much that we can do in Connecticut to make sure that we have healthy food for everyone and people are getting it locally, and that they would be more food security in our state.
Mm-hmm. We just have a couple of minutes left. I know we're focusing on the 4-H program for children, but I know our farm, I believe you have a adult volunteer program. Can you tell us about that?
We do. We have an adult volunteer program. We love our volunteers. Being a nonprofit and having 120 acres to take care of, there's no way we could ever have enough staff on payroll to maintain the farm, take care of the animals, and have all of our great programs. So we're always looking for volunteers, and we take volunteers of any talent or anything that you may want to learn about more. We're happy to bring you as a volunteer and teach you. So if you're interested in our volunteer program, you can email us at info@ourfarm.org, and we'll teach you. We have adults coming out and getting eggs for us out of the chicken coop, brushing donkeys. They're working in the gardens. They're learning from our master gardeners. We have some amazing University of Connecticut master gardeners at the farm that have years and years of experience. We now have a teaching kitchen. So we're looking forward to working with some volunteers and bringing the nutritional products from the farm into the kitchen, working with our youth and adults and learning more about that connection between eating healthy and producing your own food.
Erica Fern, again, is Executive Director of the Aura Farm in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Thanks for sharing that email address. I have a feeling you're going to hear from a lot of people, Erica.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Erica. Today's show is produced by Tess Terrible. I'm Lucy Nalpathanchel. Again, a reminder, it's Connecticut Public Radio's fall fundraising campaign. Next week, we will be preempted to provide you special coverage from NPR for the Supreme Court nominee hearings before the Senate. But we want to remind you to support Where We Live and the wide variety of conversations and programs you hear on this radio station. Here are two of my colleagues to tell you more.